employment, you can look at it as being enormously complex. You have sort of management fundamentals, you have all the law or the labor law, all the things that you need to be aware of and navigate. But also employment is very simple. It's you're building a relationship with someone to get work done, and outsourcing is very much the same.
So welcome to yet another episode of Smarter Software Outsourcing. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Derek Gallimore, who's the founder of Outsource Accelerator, the world's leading independent source of information and advisory for staff outsourcing to the Philippines. So Derek, welcome to the show.
Fred, thank you so much.
And so since it's always better to hear from our guests about their background, maybe Derek, you'd like to introduce yourself in a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run Outsource Accelerator, as you've just heard. We are a marketplace, or a little bit like a TripAdvisor for the global outsourcing industry. And really what I'm selling is global employment. Yeah.
Cool. And so today with Derek in this episode, we're going to talk a bit over a range of topics about the trends in the outsourcing industry since COVID, because I think there has been a lot of changes with a lot of companies, I think, embracing the work from home setup, and by extension, remote work. And so we'll dig in more details about also the software developers market in the Philippines in the second place. So maybe you could tell me a bit how COVID has initially impacted the outsourcing industry, because you have this vision of as a marketplace to see kind of, I guess, what's happening overall, right? Because a lot of people are coming through you, and you see a lot of inquiries. And so how did it change the industry at first, and then also over the last 2 years, how did it change how Outsource Accelerator is running business, and how you've navigated through these changes?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, outsourcing, it's all changed. I think how we work, I think the future of work, and how we conduct ourselves, what we consider sort of work and life, and the balances all really had a dramatic change over the last 2 years. Obviously, initially when COVID came out, I think there was this enormous sort of apprehension, and everything went quiet. Everyone canceled their contracts, and we're kind of thinking this was the end of the world. And then 3 months later, when they realized actually, we're still getting on with business and life, then it really strengthened the argument and awareness of offshore staffing. Because everyone was very quickly forced to explore remote work, what that meant for them, how they integrate that into their company. And then they realize that if you're going to go remote, if all of your team are going to sit around in New York, then why can't you explore global remote workforce? It sort of it just opened up this huge opportunity. So yeah.
So did you initially see like a huge dip in the initial first 3 months, where, as you said, everybody thought it would be the end of the world, and then cancellations of contracts? And then did you immediately see like a rebound in demand, because companies just really quickly realized that, I mean, things were going to continue, and they had a bit more visibility maybe for their own market, because some markets were, I mean, affected really differently? Or did it take time for you to, I mean, for companies to kind of start maybe reallocating budgets, or what's the feeling you got from that?
Yeah, look, outsourcing is a microcosm of the economy. It actually represents every kind of role and sector in the economy. So, if you were a travel agent or a cruise liner, then a lot of those accounts were shut down, and they weren't coming back for the 2 years. Whereas if you were in e-commerce or, online fitness, then they saw an absolute boom. client of ours manages Zoom as a client, and they, within the COVID period, built a huge customer service operation in the Philippines because, of course, they were one of the winners of the COVID pandemic. So it really depends. But I think it showed people that there are global opportunities for employment as opposed to just thinking locally. So I saw a lot of transfer, or just a lot of people sort of, and also what you effectively had was a recession. One of the aspects of offshoring is that generally you can save sort of 50 to 70% on your staff costs. So it's a huge advantage for people to have a sort of forced introduction to remote work and global employment.
And so you mentioned that you had seen some differences depending on the industry, obviously, but was it also the same per country? Did you see different behaviors per country, or was it like the same industry in two different countries would kind of like react the same?
Yeah, you see a lot of very similar trends in all of the countries, and I generally speak to what I refer to the high cost English speaking countries. They're really our target market. So obviously North America and Australasia and Singapore and parts of Europe. See very close trends. Even now you see that they are all talking about the Great Resignation, labor shortages, soaring salaries and employment costs. So these trends seem to, we're really one global economy now. So I think that you start to see sort of transfer of trade. It's almost, there's homogeneity within the global economy. And the biggest difference is the type of sector. For example, there are, which I'd love to ask you about a little bit later on, but I think there is now a global shortage of developers and Shopify developers and e-commerce specialists wherever you are in the world, and there's probably an oversupply of other roles like travel agents, for example.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And one question that comes to my mind is, because we're talking about crisis, and we've seen, for us, because we are so exposed to software development in the first few weeks of the Ukraine crisis, we've seen a lot of companies, especially in Europe, that were working with Ukraine. And so again, it's the same thing, right? There's this crisis happening. It's kind of the end of the world for Ukraine. And for a lot of companies that are depending on this workforce in Ukraine. So we got a lot more requests from companies with really urgent needs, because basically their operations has been shut down, and so they have to keep on running, and so they don't know what's happening to their devs. Some have maybe fled the country with their families. Some are being relocated by these companies, but not everybody. And some others just have to fight, and so they have to stay, and they can't work, obviously. And of course, not talking about all the infrastructures that have been destroyed. So as a marketplace for various roles, right? Because you're not just doing software developers, you're doing marketing people, you're doing maybe accounting people, customer service, and so on. Have you also felt an effect of this crisis, or was it more limited, or what happened?
Yeah, we honestly we haven't really seen a big move in the needle of developers, for example. I would imagine there's a lot of clients that have had to sort of do a quick shift. We haven't seen a huge move of the needle, just because we typically cover hundreds or dozens, certainly dozens of different roles across dozens of different industries. And also, honestly, there are more specific sites that cater to developers only. So maybe a lot of them kind of go to those sites. But, generally we have seen a sort of relentless kind of pickup in just inquiries generally.
Okay. And one thing that I wanted to know as well is you as a business, Outsource Accelerator, because there has been such a big shift in the behavior of people with COVID, right? Let's go back to COVID. How did your business change throughout this crisis? Have you operated differently, and have you changed the way you maybe market things, or you service clients?
Look, we have been, it sounds bad to say, but one of the beneficiaries of
Yeah, of
this
course.
crisis. We are enjoying an uptick in terms of the awareness of outsourcing. So we're really just riding this wave. We are always building the platform, reinvesting in the platform. Um, the big thing about this industry, which is global employment, is there's an education piece. People
Yeah.
need to be made aware that this is out there. People need to be educated about how it works, and then they need to be made comfortable with the concept. And so that stays fairly, it doesn't change that much until the market is mature,
Mm-hmm.
and I think within about 20 years, everyone will understand exactly what global employment is. And
Yeah.
then it's just a case of choosing who they want to partner with. Whereas at the moment, there's more of a sort of, awareness building and education. But I think more people are coming for that education. More people are like, I've heard of this, I've never prioritized it, but because of the
Mm-hmm.
crisis, because of remote work, because of the great resignation, and because of technology advancing,
Mm-hmm.
now I feel it
Mm-hmm.
is the right time for our business to learn more about this. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's where we can
Mm-hmm.
hopefully support that inquiry or transition.
So it kind of made this whole education part also easier, right? Because people have been forced into it, and so there's this increase in interest, and because they've experienced it themselves, so they understand what's working, what's not working, and maybe it's even maybe easier to convince them. So then it comes down to availability of the skills and probably the cost. And so did it maybe shorten your the time to sign a deal? Like, has it increased the velocity of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think part of the problem with offshoring is those that are in it, like yourself and I, Fred, we know that it is one of the most powerful business tools in the world,
Yeah.
to have a global workforce. Whereas those that aren't using it and aren't aware, they see it more as a vitamin instead of a painkiller,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like it's a good to have, but when it's operational, they're like, I won't do it this quarter, or I'll do it next year, or I'll look into it in 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think the pandemic sort of got everyone like, oh my God, we could be going into recession. Maybe I don't have any revenues. Maybe all of my staff won't come back. And
Yeah.
so it's really forced them to do this thing that is almost, um, it requires a bit of a lifestyle change. It's almost like, starting that weight loss diet. COVID was a good catalyst for people to
Yes.
prioritize this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, instead of, all too often, it's an operational thing. They leave it to someone in operations, and then it's, just deprioritized. And I think people are now luckily prioritizing it and then realizing how valuable it can be to
Yeah.
to their operations.
Right. That was a bit my next question to you. Is like, so the new normal for the outsourcing industry is simply an increased interest for companies that have decided to outsource during COVID because of this work from home or remote setup, and maybe more companies around people who had not been um interested by this even until now, are doing, more companies around them are doing the same thing and maybe talking about the benefits and maybe sometimes the failures of some companies to outsource. But I think most of the collaborations are successful. So then it's just like spreading the word around. I guess in yeah, and it's just accelerating.
think it's just moving gradually, sort of 5 or 20 years, gradually moving from global employment being this sort of outlier of just a crazy concept to it being normal, and then eventually it becomes the default. I think eventually it will become a default to, say I want to, I don't know, a developer, show me all the developers globally. Why are we looking at show me all the developers within a 5-kilometer radius? I think that is a crazy filter. At the moment,
Absolutely.
that is the normal filter, but eventually I think it'll be show me all of the best developers globally, and then you make a strategic decision based on the best caliber developers, the price, the quality, and things like that.
What's crazy to think is because we are in this information technology, it becomes like this worldwide market. Exactly. So people are not constrained by the distance. They may be a bit constrained by the time zones sometimes, and of course the language and the culture, but some are easy to overcome and some are a bit harder. But if you look at the material economy, like all the supply chain stuff, it's going in the exact opposite direction. I mean, it's a bit off topic, but it's funny to see that two types of industries are going in a total opposite direction in terms of internationalization with a crisis that COVID has brought.
Yeah, it's funny that I am of a view that we are heading to one single global economy, and I see that as definitely happening. I think within that you have things like wars break out, you have clashes with Korea and China, but eventually we are sort of becoming one. And I think there are trends of there's going to be skirmishes and fights, and just like Bitcoin price going up, it goes down, but eventually then it goes back up. And I think that it is inevitable. There's a knee-jerk reaction saying that, oh my God, like America needs to be completely self-sustainable on energy and production and all of its staffing and stuff like that. But it is not really a reality, and you just need sort of backup systems as opposed to sort of being completely isolated from any global economy. But it's fascinating the way it's going to go.
Yeah. And so, do you have any advice for companies that would be, looking at outsourcing right now, navigating through these changes and all the questions they might have about availability of skills, a protection of negotiation of the contracts? I mean, anything you could tell them in a few sentences, to navigate this easier. And I think that's what Outsource Accelerator is trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you look at employment, and outsourcing is in some respects completely different to employment, but also in other respects, it's just identical to employment in your own hometown. And employment, you can look at it as being enormously complex. You have sort of management fundamentals, you have all the law or the labor law, all the things that you need to be aware of and navigate. But also employment is very simple. It's you're building a relationship with someone to get work done. And outsourcing is very much the same. There are details you need to know. There's a lot of sort of cultural nuances of working efficiently with overseas teams. There is then the different sort of labor laws, jurisdictions, the ways of structuring a team properly, the intermediaries, such as Arcanys, and the industry generally. There's a huge amount of things to be aware of. But in its simplest form, it is really just employment. But it is so powerful. There is a slightly, as you begin outsourcing, there is then a learning curve. And allow yourself space for sort of 6 to 12 to 18 months of really understanding how it works when you have a global team, a remote team, working with Arcanys, working with Filipino teams, things like that. But it's just like understanding the nuances of business. There are a lot of nuances to understand, but the key message is really just to get started. You really won't look back, and it is the single most powerful business tool, I really believe. So
yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
I want to ask you some questions though.
Sure.
Can we flip the tables?
Yeah, sure.
So you are in a hot industry right now. You are connecting, hungry businesses to developers, and they must be the most in demand, currency or profession in the world. And as you mentioned as well, with the Ukraine conflict, that's knocked out a sort of pretty kind of significant supply of developers. There is a finite pool of candidates. How do you find and ensure that you can source good candidates, good developers for clients?
So I think COVID hasn't made our job a lot easier, because there's huge competition for skills. But so a lot of companies have been trying to outsource and looking for developers here and there. So Philippines is still a bit of a niche market, I think, when it comes to outsourcing, which is a good thing for us, because of course there is a competition also in the Philippines, but probably less than in India or in some other more mature countries. So it leaves us room to find really good developers. And the way we make sure that we find good developers, the one main thing is that we have a lot. Now we have 250 employees, I think, at Arcanys. So our main source of candidates comes from our employees. So of course we incentivize them to send us resumes or talk to their friends. But it's also for us very important that if someone is happy at Arcanys, then they're going to recommend their friends. And there's a bit of this trust that is built, because you wouldn't bring someone in that is not good, right? So it kind of makes our job a bit easier to I guess foster a really good workplace that in turn would get people to refer their friends to us. And that's the first step, I think, is to have trusted people that at least send us their resume. The second part is that we've built a team of senior architects from Europe that are the ones that set the standards of the people we want to let through the door. And so we've had to learn the hard way on how to improve this. And now we could say that we're very happy with the quality of the people that we accept in the company, which in turn, I think, first delights our clients, because they trust us when we bring someone, to their team, and they're like, okay, they know what they're doing, and also has brought, I think, the reputation of Arcanys as a tough company to join, which makes it is tough to join, but once you're in there, you can work on interesting projects. So it's kind of like this virtuous circle, because good developers allow us to place them on good and interesting projects of the latest technologies, and then so they like their job, and then in turn they would talk to their friends, and then so the reputation of Arcanys being tough to get in but really nice to work at has been something that we've slowly built over the years. And of course the last thing is to keep them being trained. So we incentivize people to keep on getting trained over time, which makes them keep on improving even beyond what their clients really would like them to do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And I have A lot of, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of clients or people interested in outsourcing, and something that is there's a bit of ambiguity is the kind of co-parenting. Who manages the quality of the
Mm,
output of the staff? And I think that
mhm.
that is most relevant in roles such as developers, where
Yeah,
often the people overseeing those developers are non-technical, so it's very difficult to sort of do a quality control.
yeah.
How does it work at Arcanys in terms of quality control of the output of the team?
So there are different ways of outsourcing software development, right? And there's like the way of just building a bunch of requirements and sending them out to a provider to build a product. And there's building a team for to add developers to an existing team of one of our clients. And so we are in the second business, meaning that the responsibility of the management in terms of the tasks and the workload of the developer is on the client. So it's like it's, as you said, it's just like employment, right? Instead of hiring someone in Sydney, then you hire someone in the Philippines, and you're saving 55 to I mean from 50 to 70% of the cost, depending on the position. So as we grow these existing teams, then our developers are put uh, with technical people only. I mean, in most of the 90% or 99 of the percent of the cases, they are being managed by someone technical. Because if you add layers of non-technical people between technical people, then it's not going to work, right? So that's one thing. So our clients are mainly in charge of the day-to-day code reviews and setting the standards of what they want the developers to do. But for us to make sure that our devs are, providing what is required, and that we do our job, we have two senior European architects that are looking after our developers. They do some coaching. They do sometimes code reviews. They are in charge of their what we call the weekend training, because as I mentioned earlier, our developers are incentivized to do like 3-4 hours on weekends of training. It's not mandatory, but of course it has a positive impact on their compensation, and of course they're being paid to do that, so it's an additional source of revenue for them. And so they are inside of the company, um, uh, like trying to keep them evolving, in addition to what our clients are doing as well, because they are the closest to their own needs, and they can give us the direction to which they want the developers to look into.
Got it. Got it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. You encourage them to do training on the weekend, yeah, and compensate them for it.
Yeah, so because a developer who doesn't learn is a developer who's getting bored and is going to leave, right? And so that's part of um, what we try to do to keep the fire burning, if you want, and
Yeah.
keep them on learning new things. They could and that they could actually then use down the road, right? And I think that's one of the items that we try to push. Yeah.
That's great. And so one of the effects of this, massive shortage of developers, and there's just been a huge spike in
Mm.
terms of
Hmm.
salaries and demand for
Yeah.
developers, anything in e-commerce, things like that, is that the salaries are going up. Again, this is a global phenomenon. What are you seeing in the Philippine market? Are salaries really kind of jumping?
Um, well, yeah. So the rates go up, I think, by 10 to 20% per year, depending on the skills of the developers. But if you think in terms of percentage, it can appear, pretty impressive. But if you look at real terms, because the starting range is a lot lower than the 10, 15,000 US dollars that you would get in the US or even in Australia, then the increase is not as much as it would be in these countries, right? So in all, it's kind of manageable. I would say. But the funny thing is, as I mentioned earlier, I think the Philippines is slightly shielded from all this stuff for now, compared to, for example, Vietnam or India. And I can tell you this because in the last year or so, I've started receiving a lot of inquiries from Indian companies that are trying to outsource work to us because they can't find. I don't know. I don't know if they cannot find the developers, or if the developers in India are becoming so expensive that their clients are telling them, "Look, you're gonna find other ways to cut the costs or something." So that's why I'm saying I feel like the Philippines is still a bit shielded from that, but and so it's great for us really, because I mean in the Philippines we have the lowest cost of outsourcing in Asia, and if we compare to prices in even in Eastern Europe, we're like 40% cheaper than we were compared to Ukraine or Poland or countries like that. So I think we still have a few good years ahead of us. Yeah.
Do you see a sort of short or medium term where these certain very specialized roles that are in short supply, it could almost become a sort of global rate?
Mhm.
Do you think that the
Yeah.
sort of arbitrage could disappear? You know, would it take 10 years or 50 years kind of thing?
Well, you know, when I started Arcanys, I'm like, oh, we have a good 15 years to go, and maybe after that the prices will catch up. But it hasn't. It's gone even crazier in the US and in Australia. COVID has accelerated all of that, right? I mean, like the border closures have made the prices go even crazier. So I think everything's going to go up. But as I mentioned, I think it won't go as fast in the Philippines, or some other lower wage countries as it has been going in the West. So it gives us maybe another 20 years to go, or maybe more. I don't know. But the worries
Yeah.
that I had 15 years ago have not materialized. So we have many years to
It is
keep going.
interesting, isn't it? You know, both you and I are based in the Philippines, and we tend to see it from a Philippine perspective, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the Philippine salaries are going up so high. But then you forget that also
Yeah.
are increasing globally at such
Yeah.
a rate. And
Yeah.
obviously the nominal amount in the US, you know, if something goes up 10% in the US, then that almost covers the entire Philippine
Absolutely.
salary, for example.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. So that's why if you put things in nominal terms, then I mean, and then we'll see what happens also with inflation, right? Because again, the same thing is like it's a percentage basis, and if it's 7% in the US and 7% in the Philippines, something that costs $100 in the US is going to cost 107, and then in the Philippines is going to cost just short to $11 if the prices are it's not a matter, I mean, tenfold, but you see the so yeah, we don't see this as a major risk at the moment. Yeah.
And there's a huge, there is a huge supply of people in the Philippines, isn't it? You know, it's a very young population.
Yeah.
Much younger than a lot of the developed countries. And so
Yeah.
all of this population is coming through the sort of education cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
now there's so much education available online, especially
Yeah.
for those that are inclined to
Yeah.
be developers. So it's a huge potential pool.
But we've seen that it has pushed us to start training more like, I would say, junior to mid-level developers, and train more people, because some of the skills that people are looking for in these, I would say, in Australia, more advanced economies, don't always match with the supply. So then we have to do a bit of retraining. But if you get a good developer in 3 months, they know how to handle a new framework or a new language fairly easily. But it's just a bit more of an investment on our side, but it's absolutely worth it. Because our clients don't find them in their own market, so we gotta create some of them here.
Got it. And I have one last question then, Fred. So
Sure.
I see, I'm relatively a layman in terms of technical work, but I see a lot of technical work as project work. The two
Yeah.
almost seem synonymous.
Yeah.
People want the project to build an app or build a site or build this integration. A lot of that is project versus long-term ongoing development work that is ongoing. And the difference there is, one is maybe like an agency that does a project versus
Yes.
a department of people that are working
Yeah.
full time.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
to interact, I suppose, where's the differences there?
Yeah. So, well, I think it's two different things, and it's two different kinds of businesses that are working on each type of project. So you have, like, as you mentioned, you have these short um, projects where someone wants just to build an app or do a website or something like that. And so these projects are really well defined, and they are, I think, pretty high risk if they're not well defined. So it takes a lot of preparation work to get them done, and requires, I think, a lot of different skills. Because if you make it in a project, you need a designer, you need maybe someone who's doing the branding part, and so it involves a lot of different skills. And for this, you have like web agencies that are great at that because they're really specialized in building these products. On the other side, you have bigger projects where companies are actually building the technology they are running on, meaning like it's more like B2B platforms. It could be financial, it could be healthcare, it could be whatnot. I mean, whatever industry it is, but it's like the software as a service that is the backbone of the company. And in these cases, it requires a lot of understanding of the product, maybe some industry knowledge that is built over time by the developers, but that is transferred from the business side of the business. And so for these projects, then these are projects that never really end. So yes, they are built by modules, but it's one core system that is just expanding. And so in this case, what we've seen works best, and that's really what we do, is we extend these teams as the needs grow, as the client base grows, as their needs simply grow. And so these are the projects that work best with a dedicated team mindset. And that's probably where the savings are the biggest, right? Because if you have one developer at $150,000 in Australia or in the US, over 10 years, just thinking 10 years, and then you have a developer in the Philippines at $50,000, all included, because the 150 doesn't count the office and everything, right? Then you're saving $100,000 a year, more or less, over 10 years for one guy. So that's like $1 million. And so those are where the real savings are, because it's this recurring cost. And there's no reason why a guy in the Philippines wouldn't perform as well as someone in Australia, right? And even if you say, okay, the Philippines developer is 20% less effective, you still save $800,000 on over 10 years per person. So those are the differences financially, but also in the mindset of, okay, what needs to be done, how is it defined, and what type of project is working better for what type of engagement. I hope this answers
huge,
the question.
isn't it? We get a lot of clients coming over, and the cliche is that when you offshore, you have a virtual assistant, and then it's a case of, do you pay $2 an hour or $3 an hour? And I'm always trying to sort of coach clients to, if you're down in that bottom end of the market, you're maybe going to save 10 grand a year, and you've got a very average employee. Whereas, shoot for the top of the market, get an MBA, get a Harvard grad, get, the top line developers, and you're getting world-class staff and you're saving then hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's sort of the nominal, again, coming back to the actual nominal amount, the nominal value is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
And
it's
also then
mind-blowing.
you don't have those same issues of battling with a $2 VA because they don't quite get it. It's there's huge value in the top aspect of the market.
Yeah. Yeah, but we've talked a lot about the cost, but I think well, that's one aspect, obviously, and that's a very important one. But I think also it's also because of the pool of people, be it developers or customer service people or outbound sales or whoever, is the flexibility you get. And if you get the right partner to that has access to this market, then it saves you the time of your recruitment. It saves time from your in my case, it saves a lot of time from maybe the marketing team to market the job ad, and it saves a lot of time to go through 100 of resumes that are being sent because you post an ad. It saves a lot of time from in the production and from the senior developers to actually not interview 100 candidates to just hire one that then you still need to go haggle with in terms of the salary because you don't know if this guy is going to accept your offer. And so if you compound all these things, the cost savings are completely immense, but nobody's seeing that this way because everybody's just caught up in their stuff, right? But we take a step back and we how can we communicate to what people that come to us when they start discussing, they're paying 150,000 for someone, and then some of them would want to discuss for $500 on the price of someone, and we're like, oh, that's not the right way to look at it.
It's true, isn't it? Because the price that we talk about is an all-in price, including all of the administration, all of the legal liability of employment,
everything,
all of the facilities, all of the hardware, everything. And when the client compares that to a $120,000 salary in the US, then that is just they're comparing those two numbers, but actually the 120,000 is probably works out to $250,000 a year once you add in all of the insurances and the legal exposure and the HR and the office and things like that. It's enormous, isn't it? And as you say, it's just sort of comparing apples for apples. But yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Fred.
Cool.
Really interesting stuff.
It's been great to see you again, Derek. It's been a while, and it's also been great to have you on the show today. So thanks a lot. And so I have one last question for you: is if our listeners wanted to, more about you or Outsource Accelerator, so where could they find you, and how could they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, just the website is great, outsourceaccelerator.com, and they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or just Google me, no problem. And I'm also coming out with a book, Fred, a book called Inside Outsourcing. So
nice.
If people just visit the website, and we should have information about that when it comes out. But I'm really excited about that. Hopefully, creating the first kind of comprehensive book on outsourcing. Certainly for the last 20 or 30 years.
So can you just give us one or two more sentences without saying too much, or?
Yeah, well, it's just thanks. It's just, look, this has been about a 3-year work in progress, and now we're going to release this in about a month. So it's really introducing the concept of what outsourcing is, what global employment is, where the trajectory is, I believe, for the future of employment. And then it sort of zooms in on the outsourcing industry specifically, how you can choose and select partners to work with, where the value is within the outsourcing relationship. And then it zooms in even further and gives actionable kind of advice in terms of how to build and run offshore teams. So
awesome.
I'm hoping
that's exciting. So put me on the list.
For sure.
Okay, cool, excellent.
For sure.
Great. Well, thanks, Derek, and I really hope to have you in another episode really soon.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back. Love to. This is my favorite topic right now, Fred. So always keen for another
Okay,
conversation.
great. Yeah, thank you.